Today, we're going to get into a story that was passed down from a grandmother to her grandchild. And this isn't just some ghost story told around a campfire. This is the real account of a woman named Kamala and one single terrifying event that would stick with her for the rest of her life. Let's get into it. And we start with this really chilling thought from Kamala herself. It just perfectly sets the stage, you know? It tells you that what we're about to hear is about a trauma so deep that time couldn't touch it, a fear that left a scar that never, ever faded. All right, so our story begins back in the 1970s. The setting is this isolated family home known as a wada. And I want you to picture this. It's not just some house in the country. It's a huge, sprawling, and pretty desolate mansion, totally cut off from the main village, surrounded by nothing but dense, wild land. So our narrator, Kamala, is a new bride who has just moved in here with her husband, Dinkar, and his family. And because the mansion was so massive and so far from everything, as soon as the sun went down, this heavy, oppressive silence would just blanket the whole place. I mean, imagine a quiet so complete, it feels like a weight on your chest. But that deep loneliness was about to change. A little bit of happiness was coming to the wada, because Kamala's brother-in-law, Ramakant, was getting married to a sweet, simple girl from a nearby village. Her name was Yamuna. And for a little while, the whole house was just filled with excitement and joy. Yeah, that happiness? It didn't last long. In fact, just 2 days after the wedding, something went terribly wrong. One night, the new bride, Yamuna, just disappeared. So, picture this. It's the middle of a rainy night, and a frantic search breaks out. Kamala and Ramakant are checking every single room, and you can just imagine their panic growing. When they search the grounds outside, they find something that sends a shiver down their spine. A part of the barbed wire fence is bent down, like someone forced their way through it, leading towards this old, creepy ruin nearby. That path took them to a place that everyone in the village knew to stay away from, a place of really grim local legend. It was an old, crumbling well inside a ruined compound, a spot so feared that people wouldn't even go near it in the middle of the day. And what they found there was just horrifying. Standing right at the edge of that well was Yamuna. But it wasn't the Yamuna they knew. The girl they knew was this sweet, innocent 17-year-old, almost like a little sister to Kamala. This person at the well, she was a terrifying stranger. She was just staring down into the black water, her face a ghostly white, her eyes wide, pupils completely dilated. And when they called out to her, she didn't say a word. She just shot them this sharp, hostile glare before turning and storming back to the house. So a few really uneasy days go by. Yamuna is acting like nothing ever happened, just smiling and brushing off Kamala's questions. But then, an even more disturbing incident takes place, after an urgent family matter leaves the two women completely alone in the house. I mean, can you just imagine the atmosphere? Just the two of them all alone in that massive, silent, and now deeply creepy mansion? The sense of isolation and vulnerability must have been absolutely overwhelming for Kamala. And the day just keeps getting weirder. In the afternoon, a neighbor drops off a bag of raw mutton. Later that evening, Kamala goes to the kitchen to cook, and the bag is gone, completely vanished. Now, Yamuna didn't eat meat, so Kamala's just confused and really unnerved. And then the real horror starts. In the middle of the night, Kamala wakes up, and Yamuna's bed is empty. She's gone again. Fighting through her absolute terror, Kamala cautiously follows the muddy footprints all the way back to that same haunted well. And what she sees next is something that would be burned into her brain forever. Hiding in the bushes, she watches as Yamuna crouches at the edge of the well, devouring the raw mutton, tearing at the bloody meat with her teeth and just swallowing it like a wild animal. As Kamala tries to back away in total horror, her foot snaps a dry twig. It was a tiny sound, but in that dead silence, it was deafening. Yamuna's head whips around towards the noise with this audible, unnatural crack of her neck. Her eyes lock onto the darkness where Kamala is hiding. Kamala doesn't stick around. She turns and runs for her life. So after this night of just absolute terror, Yamuna gets incredibly sick. She's burning up with a fever that no medicine can even touch. Her life is literally hanging by a thread, and the family is terrified. They finally realize they need a different kind of help, something beyond medicine. They need an expert in the supernatural. So they summon a mantric, who's basically an experienced exorcist. And get this, the moment he arrives on the property, before he even steps inside the house, he just closes his eyes and you can tell he's sensing something. His diagnosis is immediate and chilling. This isn't an illness. It's an unsatisfied presence that has attached itself to their home. When the mantric finally confronts Yamuna, she just loses it, shrieking and convulsing like a cornered animal. His assessment confirmed their absolute worst fears. He said a restless spirit, the ghost of someone who had drowned in that very well many years ago, had taken hold of Yamuna, and if they couldn't drive it out, it would drag her soul down into the well with it forever. But the solution he offered, man, it was almost as terrifying as the problem. He laid out this incredibly high-stakes ritual. A married woman had to go to the well alone at midnight on the new moon. She had to be dressed exactly like a bride. Then she had to create a decoy, a straw dummy dressed in her own sari and jewelry, set it on fire, and then just turn and walk away. And the warning was severe. If she looked back or if she screamed, the spirit would ignore the decoy and kill her instead. The family was paralyzed. Who could possibly do something so dangerous? But Kamala, who saw this innocent 17-year-old girl as her own little sister, made an incredibly brave and selfless choice. She said she would do it. And so, on the night of the new moon, under a sky so dark it felt like a heavy blanket, Kamala dressed herself as a bride. Holding a lantern in one hand and the straw effigy in the other, she walked alone into that suffocating darkness, heading back towards that haunted well. As she was setting up the effigy, the air around her turned ice cold. And then, a dark, dripping female figure slowly began to emerge from the black water of the well. A disgusting, foul stench, like something rotting, filled the air. The entity had this gaping black hole where its mouth should have been, and it started reaching for Kamala with these long, claw-like fingers. At that exact moment, Kamala threw her lantern, and the effigy burst into flames. With the spirit distracted by the fire for just a second, Kamala turned and ran. She didn't dare look back, but she could feel it chasing her. She said she could hear its breath right behind her, could feel its fingers snagging the edge of her sari. The urge to scream, to look over her shoulder, must have been overwhelming, but she remembered the mantric's warning and just kept running. She burst into the house and ran straight to Yamuna's room. The second Kamala's hand touched her forehead, Yamuna's whole body convulsed violently, and she collapsed unconscious. At that very same instant, a final, ear-splitting shriek echoed from the direction of the well, and then there was just silence. It was over. A few days later, the villagers came together, held a ceremony, and sealed that cursed well forever with heavy stones. Miraculously, Yamuna recovered completely, with absolutely no memory of anything that had happened. The family was safe. But for Kamala, the woman who risked her life to save her, the experience left a permanent scar. As she said herself, it was a trauma that took her years and years to recover from. And this whole story leaves us with a final, pretty haunting question to think about. The spirit was tied to the well, the very spot where it died. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Can a physical place become imprinted with the horror of the past? Can it literally hold on to the memory of an evil act, just waiting for the next person to get too close?